New York hums in a way no other place does. Between the chaos and beauty, it becomes easy to mistake routine for stability. I, Vanessa Tran, 34 senior fashion buyer at a midtown luxury brand, thought I had that stability with my husband, Ryan Morgan. 36, a quiet, steadfast architect who always let me have the louder voice. We'd been married for 6 years, living in a loft in Soho that he helped redesign from the ground up, literally. Everything about our life looked picture perfect, from the outside power couple city views, holiday cards with perfect lighting. But inside, something had been shifting, slowly, quietly. Like cracks in a foundation you don't see until it all starts to crumble. It started like an ordinary Saturday afternoon. My younger sister Bella, a 28-year-old digital marketer with a flair for stirring the pot, had come over for wine and sister talk. Ryan had retreated to his office down the hall after helping clean up brunch. I didn't think twice about his presence, or maybe I didn't care enough to lower my voice when I said it. If I had to do it all over again, I told Bella, swirling my glass and trying to sound casual, I probably wouldn't have dated Ryan in the first place. It slipped out flippant, unfiltered, the kind of thing you say when you want someone to laugh with you, not when you're thinking someone might hear and bleed from it. But someone did. The moment those words left my mouth, something in the air changed. Not in the obvious thunderclap kind of way, but quieter, heavier, like the room had taken a breath it didn't want to release. Bella tilted her head, her smile faltering. Vanessa, she started, but it was already too late. I turned, maybe sensing something, maybe out of pure reflex, and there he was. Ryan. Standing in the doorway between the kitchen and the hall, a coffee mug in his hand, his face unreadable. No furrowed brow, no clenched jaw, just stillness. For a second, I thought maybe he hadn't heard me. Maybe he was just there for more coffee or to ask about dinner plans. But then his eyes locked with mine and I knew he had heard everything. He didn't say a word. No accusations, no demands for explanation. Just a long, hard look that made my stomach twist. Then without a sound, he turned and walked back down the hall. A few seconds later, the front door opened, then closed. I stood there like someone had just flipped the power off in my chest. Bella, ever the one to avoid discomfort, muttered something about needing to go, grabbed her tote, and left me alone with the echo of my own voice and a silence I hadn't expected to care about so much. I didn't know what to do. Should I follow him? Call, pretend like nothing happened? That's the thing about hurting someone who rarely shows their pain. When they finally walk away, they take every ounce of certainty with them. That night, the apartment felt like it had doubled in size. Every shadow stretched longer. Every creak in the wood floors echoed louder. I wandered through the rooms like a stranger in my own life, unsure what to touch, what to fix first. Ryan didn't come home. His keys were gone from the hook, but his shoes, the worn leather ones he always said were too comfortable to throw away, were still by the door. I stared at them like they were a clue to something bigger, some answer I couldn't quite reach. I texted him once. Can we talk No. No reply. Then again, a few hours later. Where are you? Still nothing. By midnight, I wasn't even angry. I was restless. The kind of unease that sits in your ribcage and expands with every tick of the clock. I poured myself a glass of wine, then another. I reread my own words in that room with Bella and flinched. I wouldn't date him now. How casual I'd sounded, how detached. But I hadn't said it to hurt him, had I? Or had I? I kept trying to rationalize. People vent. People say things they don't mean all the time. But the truth was, I did mean it when I said it. I just didn't expect it to matter. I thought Ryan would brush it off like he always did, patient, predictable, always the one who forgave first. I'd taken his quiet strength for granted. The next morning, I woke up on the couch with a stiff neck and a phone full of nothing. No messages, no missed calls. Just that persistent ache in my chest where something, maybe pride, maybe love, had started to crack. The next day passed like I was floating underwater. My meetings at the firm blurred into one another. I nodded through Zoom calls, made notes I'd never revisit, all while checking my phone every 15 minutes like a teenager waiting for a text. Still, nothing from Ryan. Back at the apartment, his things were untouched. His jacket hung on the back of the dining chair. His laptop, closed, but not powered down, blinked faintly on his desk. The only sign he'd left voluntarily was the absence of his overnight bag. That and the silence. I called his best friend Jonah around 9 p.m. Have you heard from him? I tried to keep my voice casual, but Jonah wasn't stupid. Not since yesterday. Did something happen? I hesitated. We had a fight. Must have been more than that if he's ghosting. I bristled. He's not ghosting. But I didn't know how to finish the sentence. He's recovering. He's hiding. Maybe both. The truth was, Ryan wasn't the kind of man who stormed out. He was the kind who stayed through the storm. When my father passed away and I refused to talk for days, Ryan brought me food in silence, rubbing my back until I let him back in. When I tanked a major pitch and took it out on him, he waited until I cooled off, then held me anyway. But this silence was new. It was loud, and I didn't know how to survive it. I scrolled through my messages with Bella looking for validation. Had I really been that harsh? That careless Bella had texted after the call dropped. Soph, you need to fix this. He heard everything. I didn't reply. Instead, I walked into the kitchen and stared at the chair where Ryan always sat, sipping his black coffee while reading headlines aloud. That chair hadn't moved, but the man in it, the love, the warmth, was gone. By midnight, I cracked. I sent another text. I was venting. Please come home. We can talk. No response. Somewhere between the second glass of wine and the third, I finally whispered the truth out loud. I'd said something unforgivable, not because it was cruel, but because it was true. And the part of me that said it wasn't some angsty inner child. It was the part that had been quietly growing more resentful, more disillusioned, while I smiled through brunches and date nights like everything was fine. Ryan wasn't perfect, but neither was I. And now I might have shattered us beyond repair. The morning light spilled into the apartment like nothing had changed, but everything had. Ryan's side of the bed was still untouched, his pillow perfectly shaped. I sat up, my throat dry, my heart heavy. I checked my phone again. Still no reply, not even a read receipt. I dragged myself into the shower, hoping the water would wash off the guilt. But it only made the silence louder. After dressing in the same pantsuit I'd worn twice this week because picking a new outfit suddenly felt like solving a Rubik's Cube, I found myself standing in the kitchen staring at the coffee machine. I didn't know how Ryan liked his coffee. After 5 years, I realized I never bothered to learn. He always made it for me. Midway through my morning commute, I impulsively texted Bella again. Did I really sound like that? Her reply was immediate. Soph, it wasn't what you said. It's how easily you said it, like it meant nothing. I turned off my phone. At work, I was a shadow of myself. Even when my assistant Lacey asked if I was okay, I gave her a weak smile and waved her off. Just tired, I lied. But I wasn't tired. I was terrified. Terrified that I'd finally done something irreversible. That evening, I sat in front of the TV, watching something I couldn't follow, sipping tea I couldn't taste. The doorbell rang just as I started to give up hope. I flew off the couch and opened it to find not Ryan, but Jonah. He looked uncomfortable holding a takeout bag. He's staying with me. Is he okay? I asked. The words came out smaller than I meant them to. He's not talking much, Jonah said, but he wanted his laptop charger. Figured I'd swing by and grab it. I nodded and turned to get it, my hands trembling as I unplugged the cable. When I returned, Jonah hesitated before taking it. Soph, he's not angry. He's hurt. Really hurt. You might think this was just venting, but you cracked something in him. I swallowed hard. What am I supposed to do? Jonah shrugged. Honestly, you might need to ask yourself what you want first. Do you want to be right, or do you want him? After he left, I sat on the edge of the bed and stared into the dark. The truth I hadn't wanted to say before began to press in around me. It wasn't just about what I said to Bella. It was about everything I never said to Ryan. How I stopped affirming him. How I slowly let resentment replace appreciation. How I started treating him like furniture, something steady, supportive, but unnoticed, taken for granted. He didn't deserve that. No one does. And for the first time, I stopped asking why he left and started asking why he stayed so long. The days blurred together after that. Each one felt heavier than the last. My apartment, once just a place we slept and ate and sometimes danced barefoot to 80s playlists, now echoed with the weight of his absence. Every drawer Ryan used, every chair he leaned back in, became a reminder of what I'd broken, with a single sentence I couldn't take back. I kept expecting him to come home. I thought maybe he'd get tired of sulking and decide it wasn't worth staying mad. Ryan was predictable like that until now, and that's what scared me the most. I started noticing the small things, like how I had no idea how to refill the Brita filter. Ryan always did that. How the bathroom sink leaked slightly, and I didn't know who to call. How no one reminded me to eat when I skipped lunch for back-to-back meetings. His absence wasn't just emotional, it was logistical. Then on a random Wednesday, Bella stopped by unannounced. She didn't even knock, just walked in, using the spare key she'd never returned. "You need to talk to him," she said, simply setting down 2 coffees on the table. "You can't keep pretending this is going to fix itself." I glared at her, defensive. "You think I don't know that?" "No," she said evenly. "I think you're afraid to look in the mirror." I scoffed, but the words sat with me like a rock in my stomach. After she left, I wandered into the bathroom and did something I hadn't done in days, really looked at myself. The woman staring back at me was tired, not from lack of sleep but from avoidance. Avoiding vulnerability, avoiding hard conversations, avoiding the growing chasm between me and the man who used to be my safest place. My career had always demanded confidence, control, sharp answers. Vulnerability wasn't rewarded in meetings. But marriage wasn't a negotiation table. You couldn't strategize your way out of hurt. I picked up my phone. My fingers hovered over his name. I typed erased. Typed again. "Can we talk?" I didn't hit send. I wasn't ready. Not yet. That night, I took out the journal Ryan gave me on our 2nd anniversary, the one I never used because I said I didn't have time. I flipped to the first page. His note was still there. "For when you want to write something real. I love all your fake speeches, but I want the unedited you." I stared at it until the words blurred. Then I opened to a blank page and began writing not a speech, not an apology, just the truth. I wrote about the guilt, the shame, how easy it was to confuse comfort for lack of love, how I used sarcasm as a shield, how I forgot that being heard isn't the same as being respected. And then I asked myself the question Jonah posed. Do you want to be right, or do you want him? For the first time, I admitted the answer out loud. I wanted him. 3 days after I wrote that first page, Ryan showed up at our apartment. I didn't hear the door open. I was in the kitchen, hands deep in soapy water, trying to scrub a stain off a wine glass that had been there too long. The clink of the door caught me mid-rinse, and for a second, I froze. When I turned, he was standing there, his posture tense, like someone entering a house that wasn't his anymore. "Hi," he said. Not angry, not warm, just guarded. "Hi," I replied, drying my hands on a dish towel, suddenly aware of every single thing I'd done wrong. "I came to get a few more things," he said, walking past me toward the bedroom. He didn't ask how I was, didn't look at the coffee table, still stacked with the unopened mail he used to sort the to sort every Sunday. He didn't even glance at the bouquet of peonies I'd bought and placed by the window, his favorite. "Ryan." I called, my voice a whisper too loud for the silence. "Can we talk?" He paused in the hallway. "I don't know, Cam. Can we?" I stepped closer, heart in my throat. "Please." 5 minutes. "That's all I'm asking." He hesitated, then returned to the living room, arms crossed like armor. "I know what I said I started was cruel. I didn't mean for you to hear it. And I definitely didn't mean it, like... But you did mean it," he interrupted gently, almost sadly. "Didn't you?" My lips parted, but no sound came. Because, yes, a part of me had meant it. I'd been frustrated, overwhelmed, and instead of talking to him, I vented to someone else like a coward. Yes, I admitted, I did. But not in the way you think. I was lashing out, I was scared and stupid, and I wanted to feel in control of something. And in that moment, the easiest thing to control was you, or so I thought. Ryan looked at me, his eyes bloodshot, not from tears, but from the weight of days spent in limbo. Do you know what that felt like, hearing that from the person I would still choose every day? The ache in my chest swelled. I never stopped choosing you, I said, even when I didn't deserve you. He shook his head. No, that's the thing, Cam. You didn't choose me. You chose to humiliate me. You chose to weaponize honesty when it was convenient and call it venting. You think love survives on clever comebacks and half-hearted check-ins? My eyes filled. I know I screwed up. Jonah's words echoed in my mind. You mistake being clever for being kind, and he was right. I can't rewrite what I said, I told Ryan, stepping forward, but I can show you that I'm willing to start telling the truth. The full truth. No armor, no sarcasm, just me. He looked at me for a long time like he was trying to decide whether he saw a stranger or someone worth saving. Then he said something that would stick with me for the rest of my life. I don't need perfection, Cam. I never did, but I do need safety. And right now, you don't feel safe to love. He turned and walked to the door. Ryan, I whispered. He stopped. I started writing, I said, voice shaking. Not speeches. Not for work, for me, for us. I don't know if it'll matter, but I'm trying. He didn't turn around. He just nodded once, then left. I collapsed onto the couch, not in defeat, but in realization. This wasn't rock bottom. This was the floor where you decide whether to keep falling or to climb. The days that followed Ryan's visit moved differently, heavier, slower. I still went to work, still sat in meetings, and pitched brand campaigns like everything was normal. But inside, everything felt hollow. My mind wandered constantly to that conversation, to the words I couldn't take back, to the look in his eyes when he said I didn't feel safe to love. That line haunted me. I began to notice things I hadn't before, how quick I was to deflect emotion with sarcasm, how often I interrupted people mid-thought, assuming I already knew where they were headed. I started keeping a notebook with me. Not for work, not for my clients, just for me. Every day I wrote down one moment. I could have chosen empathy, but didn't. There were so many. Then came Sunday, our old tradition day. Ryan and I used to have pancakes every Sunday morning, usually half burned and eaten while watching bad reality TV. That Sunday I made them alone. I burned them anyway on purpose, maybe. I sat in silence, staring at the empty seat across from me, my fork barely making a dent in the syrup-drenched stack. That night I finally called Jonah. I need help, I told him. I don't even know what I'm doing anymore. To his credit, Jonah didn't say I told you so. He just said come over, and that was that. When I got to his apartment, he was watching an old French film with subtitles and drinking wine out of a chipped mug. You look like hell, he said, handing me the mug. I feel like it. We talked, really talked. About growing up with parents who use silence like punishment. About how I learned early that words had power, and how I misused that power to protect myself. I cried, ugly and loud. Jonah just sat there, patient as ever. Do you want to get him back? He finally asked. I nodded. But more than that, I want to become someone who deserves to. That was the moment everything changed. Over the next few weeks, I did something I hadn't done in years. I paused. I listened more than I spoke. I started therapy. I even joined a local writers group, anonymous, raw, and terrifying. We met every Tuesday in a bookstore's basement. I read parts of my journal aloud, my hands shaking the first time. One of the members, a middle-aged poet named Clarissa, approached me after. Pain doesn't make you weak, she said. It makes you real. Keep writing. And I did, every single day. Eventually, I wrote a letter to Ryan. Not a plea, not a pitch, not a list of apologies, just the truth. I wrote about the night he walked out, the silence that followed, and the slow unraveling of the person I thought I was. I didn't ask him to come back. I asked him to understand. Then I did something even scarier. I left it on his doorstep and walked away. That night, for the first time in months, I slept through the night. The next morning, I woke to a single text. Read your letter. I don't know what comes next, but I'm open to coffee. I didn't smile. Not right away, because I knew coffee didn't mean forgiveness. But it meant something even more important. It meant maybe there was still a bridge we could rebuild, brick by brick. We met at the corner cafe on 8th and Sullivan, the same one where we used to sneak long breakfasts before work when we were still in the honeymoon phase, when every smile meant something and silence was never scary. I got there early, heart thudding so loudly I thought the barista could hear it over the espresso machine. Ryan walked in just as he always had. Not flashy, not loud, just solid present. He wore a navy coat and that soft gray scarf I gave him our second Christmas together. I hadn't seen him in almost 2 months, but it felt both like yesterday and another lifetime ago. We didn't hug. We didn't even smile at first, just a quiet nod. He sat across from me. I couldn't stop staring at his eyes, kind, cautious, but tired, like mine. Thank you for the letter, he said, hands wrapped around his cup. It took guts. I nodded, swallowing hard. I didn't write it to fix anything I said. I just needed to say what I never said before. What I never let myself feel before. He tilted his head slightly. You said I made you feel small. I read that line over and over. I'm sorry, I whispered. I know, he said. I felt that in the letter. For the first time in a long time, it felt like you were speaking to me, not through me. We sat in silence for a while, both of us just watching people come and go outside the window. A kid dropped a chocolate croissant and his mom bent down to scoop it up. Life in its mundane beauty kept moving. I don't know what this is, I said, finally motioning between us. I don't know if it's a new beginning or a proper ending, but I want to earn back your trust. Not because I'm afraid of being alone, but because you deserved better. You still do. Ryan looked down at his coffee, his thumb tracing the rim of the cup. Then he said something that struck me harder than any argument we ever had. You don't need to fix everything, Alina. Sometimes people don't want a fixer. They want a partner. Someone who's there even when there's nothing to solve. I nodded slowly. I'm learning that. He smiled faintly, the first real smile I'd seen from him in so long. Good. Because I'm not here to jump back in. I'm here to see if we even know how to sit with each other again. To see if there's still something real under all the noise. There is, I said, but I won't try to prove it in one day, or a letter. I'll show up, over time. If you let me. He leaned back in his chair, eyes scanning my face. I think that's fair. When we parted that day, we didn't make plans. No promises, no guarantees. Just a soft goodbye and the sense that whatever came next, we were no longer adversaries. We were human again. 2 people who'd broken something and who just might, with care and patience, find their way back to something new. Not what we had. Something deeper. The apartment felt foreign in its stillness. The clink of utensils on plates, once familiar, now echoed like accusations. After Elijah left with his suitcase, no shouting, no dramatic slam of the door, just a chilling, hollow finality, I found myself wandering from room to room, unsure of where I belonged. The couch still bore the shape of where he used to nap after work. The kitchen sink where he used to hum while rinsing coffee mugs now sat dry and silent. Every space had become a haunting of what was once ours. I thought I'd feel angry, maybe even righteous. I told myself over and over that he overreacted, that everyone vents, that what I said wasn't unforgivable. But the truth settled in slowly like fog creeping over a field, cold, obscuring, unrelenting. I hadn't just vented, I had belittled him. I didn't defend our love, not even in private. And I did it with my sister like it was nothing, like he was disposable. And yet, he wasn't. Elijah was the man who stood by me when I quit 2 jobs back to back because I wasn't feeling inspired. He showed up with flowers the day I landed my current client, even though I forgot his birthday that same week. He filled the silence in our lives with patience, with effort, with presence. I had used that silence against him. Now that silence screamed. I spent the next day scrubbing our apartment clean, not because it was dirty, but because I didn't know what else to do. I hoped that wiping down surfaces would somehow wipe away the memory of my cruelty. I texted him once, just, "I miss you." He didn't reply. That night I sat alone on our balcony with a blanket wrapped around my shoulders. The city below didn't pause for my grief. Taxis still honked. Couples still laughed on the sidewalks. Somewhere across Manhattan, Elijah was breathing the same night air, but not as my husband. Not anymore. Not really. And for the first time I wondered, what if he's finally done? What if I don't get another chance? Days blurred. Work emails went unanswered. The creative director who once thrived on pitches and storyboards now struggled to look in the mirror. I kept imagining Elijah's voice, what he might say if he knew I was finally listening. Not reacting, not defending, just listening. I revisited every moment with new eyes, how often he asked if I was okay when I came home, quiet, how I always brushed it off like he was annoying, how many times I saw him glancing at me from across the table with a look that said, "I miss you," but I chose to scroll instead. I had starved our marriage, not with violence, but with neglect. Quiet, consistent, dismissive neglect. And when he overheard me say I wouldn't even date him now, that wasn't just a dagger. It was the final confirmation that I didn't respect the man I had married. It wasn't what I meant, but it was what I said, and sometimes that's all that matters. One morning, I went to my sister, Natalie's apartment because honestly, I had nowhere else to go. I expected sympathy, or at least a shared resentment for Elijah's silence. Instead, she looked at me with the kind of tired compassion that only comes from someone who's heard one too many excuses. "You're not the villain," she said, "but you're not the victim either." Those words sat with me longer than anything Elijah had said before walking out. I had been looking for a way to spin the story to make myself feel better, to explain it as just a mistake in a long marriage. But it wasn't just a mistake. It was a pattern. A slow erosion of intimacy, care, humility. And now the cliffs had crumbled. The warning signs had been there for years. I just kept painting over the cracks, hoping love would survive the neglect. But love, real love, requires tending, humility, accountability. And mine had none of that. I didn't know how to fix it yet. But for the first time, I wasn't planning how to defend myself. I was preparing to own what I'd broken. I finally saw Elijah again. It had been 5 weeks. It was a random Tuesday afternoon in Soho. I was walking out of a meeting, one of the first I'd managed to show up to on time since everything unraveled when I saw him. He was outside a bookstore cafe sitting by the window with someone, a woman, maybe mid-30s, casual elegance, a soft, bright smile. They were laughing. And Elijah. He looked lighter. It hit me like a truck. Not just because he was with someone else, though, that twisted something hard in my stomach, but because I couldn't remember the last time I made him laugh like that. Not a polite chuckle or an exhausted sigh. A laugh, real and full, the kind of laugh that says, "I feel safe here." He hadn't seen me yet. I could have walked away. I should have. But I stood there frozen, watching a version of him that no longer belonged to me. Then he glanced up. Our eyes locked. He didn't look away. He didn't wave. He just stared long enough for me to feel it in my spine. Not with anger or even sadness, just detachment, like I was someone he used to know. And I realized I used to be his favorite person. The one he brought coffee to in bed, the one he designed mixtapes for when Spotify felt impersonal. The one he trusted with his flaws, his fears, his dreams. And I had shattered that version of us with a sentence I treated like gossip. If I had to do it all over again, I wouldn't date him. Now he was living like he heard me and believed me. I turned and walked away, choking on my breath, the city blurring around me. This was the shock no one prepares you for, the moment you realize they finally stopped waiting for you to change. I'd lost him. Not in a dramatic, yelling, door-slamming way, but in the quiet, steady kind of way people leave when they've stayed too long trying to be loved by someone who never really saw them. That night I opened my journal for the first time in weeks. The pages felt heavier than they used to, like they knew the truth before I was ready to write it down. I stared at the blank page and wrote a letter, not to Elijah, to me. Dear version of me who thought venting was harmless, who believed love could survive carelessness, who said words as if they didn't stick, who thought he'll always be here was a given. You were wrong. You mistook his quiet for weakness, his patience for passivity, his forgiveness for permanence. And now you're sitting alone wondering how someone so nice could walk away with so much strength. You didn't lose Elijah the moment he walked out. You lost him over years of small dismissals. Every time you rolled your eyes at his ideas. Every time you said it's not a big deal when it was to him. Every time you chose performance over honesty, sarcasm over softness. You built a house with no walls and then were shocked when it collapsed. And the worst part? You didn't even realize he was starving until he stopped showing up to the table. As I finished writing, I felt it the weight of regret, not as punishment but as consequence. Not because I wasn't loved, but because I didn't protect the love I was given. So here it is. If you're reading this and still have someone who shows up, who forgives even when it hurts, who tries. When it's easier to shut down, don't wait until they stop. Don't wait until you see them laughing with someone else to remember what their laugh used to sound like with you. Words matter. Timing matters. How you love someone matters. So say what needs to be said now before silence becomes the loudest thing between you. And if you've already lost them, learn. Change. Become the person you should have been before they left, not to win them back, but so you never lose someone like them again. Because next time, if there is one, you'll know better, and you'll be worth staying for. Are you tending to your love or letting it starve in silence? Don't wait for a closed door to realize what you could have cherished.